In life, saying sorry is like the Wi-Fi password to relationships. Without it, the connection just doesn't work. But the real question is, are we typing the password correctly? Are we just saying sorry out of habit? Or are we actually meaning it from the heart? I once met a man who said, Swamiji, I've said sorry 100 times to my wife, but she's still angry. I asked him, did you just say the word sorry, or did you actually mean it? He looked at me and said, is there a difference? I paused for a smile. Oh yes, my friend, there's a big difference. See, apologies are not about the lips, they are about the heart. A sorry without sincerities is like sending someone an empty gift box. It looks like a gift, but when they open it, there's nothing inside. Accept, don't argue. This is where the true essence of an apology begins. Most of us, when we find ourselves in the middle of a conflict, instinctively prepare a defense rather than a sincere apology. It's almost as if our ego hires a lawyer in our mind to fight the case. I didn't mean to. You misunderstood me, but you also did this. In the process, we forget the most important thing, the other person's feelings. Acceptance is not about proving who is right or wrong. It's about honoring the other person's emotions and acknowledging the hurt that has been caused, even if unintentionally. Think about it. How many times have relationships, whether with a friend, partner, sibling, or even a colleague, become distant, not because the mistake was unforgivable, but because the apology was diluted with justification? A simple, heartfelt, I'm sorry I was wrong, could have fixed the crack, but instead, we chose to debate, defend, or delay. And what happens then? The distance grows, trust erodes, and even love feels strained. When you choose to accept without arguing, you give the other person the gift of validation. And validation is one of the most powerful emotional needs of any human being. It tells them, your feelings matter, you matter, what happened to you matters. When people feel seen and heard, the anger that burns within them begins to cool. It's not magic, it's just the power of humility. Consider this scenario. A father misses his daughter's school performance because he got caught up at work. When he finally comes home, he says, I'm sorry, but you know how important this project is. The daughter hears the but, and the apology loses its sincerity. Now imagine a different response. I'm sorry I wasn't there for you today. You must have felt really hurt. I should have been there. The second apology doesn't make excuses, it accepts. That acceptance makes the child feel valued, loved, and understood. Acceptance is not about humiliation, it's about strength. The strength to put your ego aside for the sake of the relationship. It takes courage to admit, yes, I made a mistake, without feeling the need to explain or justify it. In fact, those who are secure and emotionally strong find it easier to accept because they understand that admitting a mistake doesn't make them small, it makes them human. There's a beautiful thing that happens when you practice this kind of acceptance. The other person's heart softens. It's almost as though your humility invites them to meet you in that same space of understanding. Often, conflicts resolve faster because one person's genuine acceptance opens the door for the other person's forgiveness. Look around in daily life and you'll see examples everywhere. a husband who accidentally forgets an anniversary, a friend who makes a hurtful comment in jest, a colleague who unintentionally interrupts during a meeting. In every one of these situations, an argument will only add fuel to the fire, while simple acceptance, "I'm sorry, I wasn't thoughtful," can calm the storm. And here's the deeper truth: when you argue instead of accepting, what you're really doing is protecting your ego. Ego says, "I have to be right," while love says, "I want this relationship to be right." Which one are you choosing? The moment you decide that the relationship is more important than winning the argument, you'll naturally gravitate towards acceptance instead of resistance. This doesn't mean you agree with everything the other person says. Acceptance is not about surrendering your truth. It's about honoring theirs. For instance, you might not have intended to hurt someone, but if they are hurt, that pain is real for them. Accepting their emotion doesn't mean you agree with every word they say, but it does mean you respect their experience. And that, my friend, is what builds deeper trust and emotional safety in any relationship. There's also a ripple effect when you practice this. People start feeling safer around you. They know that if something goes wrong, you won't meet them with defensiveness or counter accusations, but with understanding and accountability. This strengthens bonds in ways that mere words or grand gestures never could. Think about your own experiences. Recall a time when someone apologized to you, but immediately followed it up with a reason or an excuse. Did it feel sincere? Now recall a time when someone simply said, "I'm truly sorry. I was wrong." Didn't that touch you more deeply? That's the power of acceptance. It doesn't just fix situations, it heals hearts. Practicing acceptance also transforms you from the inside. It humbles you, softens your ego, and teaches you the art of compassion. Instead of being quick to defend, you become quick to understand. Instead of reacting, you start reflecting. Over time, you'll notice that people are more open with you, more honest, and more willing to forgive you. Not because you never make mistakes, but because they trust your sincerity when you own up to them. So the next time you find yourself in a situation where you've hurt someone, intentionally or not, pause before you speak. Resist the urge to explain, justify, or argue. Simply accept. Say, "I'm sorry, I hurt you. I was wrong." That moment of pure acceptance, without any buts, will do more for your relationship than 1,000 explanations ever could. And remember, acceptance is not just about the words. It's about the tone, the timing, and the intent. A rushed or robotic "sorry" never works because it doesn't carry the weight of your heart. But a slow, thoughtful, genuine "I'm sorry" that comes from a place of empathy has the power to heal even the deepest wounds. Feel their hurt. This is where an apology stops being just a polite word and becomes an act of healing. Most of us have been guilty of saying "sorry" as a reflex, like pressing a button without thinking. But here's the truth. A sorry that doesn't connect to the other person's emotions is just noise. It's like offering someone an empty glass when they're dying of thirst. The word "sorry" quenches nothing unless it carries the water of empathy. To truly feel someone's hurt, you have to step out of your own shoes and step into theirs. This is not easy because our minds are wired to defend ourselves first. When a conflict happens, Our first instinct is to explain, I didn't mean to hurt you, or you're overreacting. But what if, just for a moment, we paused our defense and asked ourselves, what must this person be feeling right now? That single shift changes everything. Imagine this: a friend confides in you about something deeply personal, and in a careless moment, you share it with someone else. When your friend finds out, they feel betrayed. Now, you could say, I'm sorry, but I didn't think it was a big deal. That apology lands flat because it's focused on you, not on their pain. But if you take a deep breath and instead say, I realize how much that trust meant to you, and I broke it. You must feel hurt and disappointed. I'm so sorry. The tone changes completely. Suddenly, your apology is not just about admitting you did something wrong, it's about honoring their emotions. Feeling someone's hurt requires humility and patience. You don't need to agree with every word they say. You just need to validate their experience. Because in the end, pain is deeply personal. What feels small to you might feel huge to them. It's not your place to measure the depth of someone else's wound. Your role in that moment is simply to acknowledge that the wound exists and that it matters. Take a look at relationships around you, between parents and children, between friends, between partners. How many of those bonds weaken, not because of the mistake itself, but because one person felt unseen in their pain? A teenager whose parents dismiss their heartbreak as puppy love grows distant. A wife whose concerns are brushed off as overthinking stops sharing her feelings. A friend who opens up about a struggle but hears, you'll get over it, stops reaching out. In every one of these moments, what was missing wasn't the word sorry, but the feeling of empathy. When you feel someone's hurt, you communicate more than just an apology. You say, I see you. I understand that you're hurting. And I care. That simple acknowledgement can soften anger, dissolve resentment, and open the door to genuine reconciliation. People are not looking for perfect people. They are looking for people who understand them. Think of a time in your life when someone truly felt your pain. Maybe you made a mistake at work, and instead of scolding you, your boss said, I know you didn't intend this, and I can see you're upset about it. Let's figure it out together. That moment probably stayed with you, didn't it? Because in that moment, you didn't just hear words, you felt seen and supported. That is the power of empathy. Feeling someone's hurt also requires listening, real listening. Not the kind where you're already preparing your response while the other person is talking. Sit with them. Look them in the eye. Let them express their anger, their sadness, their disappointment. You don't need to fix their emotions. You just need to honor them. Sometimes silence speaks louder than explanations. Daily life gives us endless opportunities to practice this. When your child is upset about a lost toy, instead of saying, it's just a toy, don't cry, try saying, I know you love that toy. It hurts to lose something special, doesn't it? When a friend cancels plans and you feel ignored, instead of lashing out, pause and consider that maybe they're struggling with something you don't know about. Empathy in these small, everyday moments strengthens your ability to apologize sincerely when the bigger conflicts arise. The beauty of feeling someone's hurt is that it transforms the apology from an obligation into a gift. A hollow sorry feels like a formality, but when your apology comes from a place of empathy, it becomes an act of love. You're not just saying sorry to end the argument, you're saying sorry to heal a wound, and people can feel that. They can sense when your words are backed by genuine understanding. This depth of apology also builds trust. When someone knows that you can truly see and feel their pain, they're more likely to forgive. Why? Because forgiveness is easier when the person who hurt you shows that they genuinely care about what you went through. It makes reconciliation not just possible but meaningful. Here's something else to remember. When you learn to feel someone else's hurt, you also grow as a person. Empathy softens your ego. It teaches you to be less reactive and more compassionate. It allows you to build deeper, stronger connections, because people naturally gravitate toward those who make them feel understood. And this isn't limited to personal relationships. Even in professional spaces, empathy can transform dynamics. A manager who takes a moment to understand an employee's stress before pointing out a mistake creates an environment of trust and loyalty. A leader who feels the team struggles can inspire them to rise together. Feeling someone's hurt is not about pity. It's about respect. It's about acknowledging the dignity of another human being's experience. When you apologize from that space, your words carry weight. They don't just skim the surface, they reach the heart. So the next time you find yourself saying, sorry, pause. Before you speak, take a moment to step into their shoes. Ask yourself, what must they be feeling right now? How would I feel if I were in their place? And then let that empathy shape your words and your tone. Because at the end of the day, the best apology is not the one that says, I'm sorry, the loudest. It's the one that makes the other person feel understood, valued, and healed. Take responsibility. These two simple words carry the weight of transformation in any relationship, whether it's with a partner, a friend, a colleague, or even with yourself. Responsibility is the bridge between a mistake and healing. It's the quiet courage to say, yes, I did this. It was my action, my choice, my words, and I own it. Without that ownership, apologies remain empty. With it, even the deepest wounds can begin to mend. The truth is, taking responsibility is not natural for most of us. Our instinct is to protect ourselves. When something goes wrong, our mind races to find someone or something else to blame. I only said that because you provoked me. I didn't finish the task because the system was down. I didn't mean to forget your birthday. I was just too busy. These excuses may feel like self-protection, but what they really do is build walls. They prevent the other person from feeling your sincerity and block you from growing. Think of a time when someone hurt you and then tried to explain it away. Maybe a friend shared something personal of yours and said, I didn't think it was a big deal, instead of admitting it was wrong. Did that explanation make you feel better? Probably not. Now think of a time when someone looked you in the eye and said, I was wrong, and I take full responsibility for what I did. Didn't that honesty soften your heart? That's the power of taking responsibility. It validates the other person's experience and shows that you are willing to own your actions without running from the discomfort. Taking responsibility also requires humility, and humility is often misunderstood. It doesn't mean beating yourself up or drowning in guilt. It simply means removing the armor of ego and standing in the truth. When you say, "Yes, I made a mistake," you are not declaring yourself weak. You are showing strength, the strength to face reality without hiding behind excuses. Imagine this in a daily life example. A father promises his child that he will attend a school event, but gets caught up in work and doesn't make it. When he returns home, the child is upset. Many parents in that situation might say, "I had an important meeting. You don't understand." But what if instead he said, "I promised you I'd be there, and I broke that promise. That must have hurt you. I'm so sorry, and I will make it up to you." That kind of ownership teaches the child a powerful lesson that real strength lies in accountability, not in justification. In relationships, responsibility is the foundation of trust. When you take responsibility, you're saying to the other person, "You are safe with me because I won't deny or dismiss your pain." That safety builds deeper bonds because people feel secure with someone who owns their part in a conflict instead of deflecting it. Even in professional life, the same principle applies. Picture a team project that goes wrong. If a manager says, "The team didn't deliver because they didn't listen to me," it breeds resentment and mistrust. But if that manager stands up and says, "I didn't communicate clearly, and that's on me. Let's fix it together," it transforms the atmosphere. People respect honesty. They respect those who are willing to look at their mistakes without running from them. Taking responsibility also frees you. Carrying the burden of excuses and denial is exhausting. Every time you refuse to own a mistake, you create a tangle of justifications to maintain. But the moment you say, "Yes, it was me, and I'm sorry," there is a release, a sense of clarity and lightness. You no longer need to defend or explain. You can simply focus on making things right. Daily life gives us countless small opportunities to practice this. Maybe you snapped at a loved one after a stressful day. Maybe you missed an important deadline. Maybe you forgot a promise you made to someone who matters to you. In each of these moments, there's a choice. You can either defend yourself or take responsibility. And every time you choose responsibility, you not only repair the relationship, but also grow as a person. What makes responsibility so powerful is that it shifts the focus from blame to change. When you own your mistake, you also own your power to correct it. You stop seeing yourself as a victim of circumstances and start seeing yourself as someone who can choose differently next time. That mindset of accountability builds character and resilience. One of the most beautiful things about taking responsibility is how it softens conflicts. Arguments often escalate because people feel unheard or invalidated. But when you calmly say, "You're right, that was my fault," the energy of the conversation changes. The other person no longer needs to defend themselves or prove their point because you've already acknowledged it. What could have been an endless cycle of blame and defense instead becomes a space for understanding and resolution. Taking responsibility also models integrity for others. Children who see their parents own their mistakes grow up understanding that accountability is a strength, not a weakness. Teams led by responsible leaders become more open and collaborative. Friends and partners who see you consistently owning your part in conflicts feel safer being honest with you, knowing you won't meet their vulnerability with defensiveness. It's important to remember that taking responsibility doesn't mean accepting blame for things you didn't do. It means being honest about your part, no more, no less. In every situation, there are pieces of the puzzle that belong to you, and those are the pieces you need to own. That honesty with yourself and with others is what makes your apology meaningful and your relationships stronger. At its core, taking responsibility is about choosing love over ego. Ego says, protect yourself at all costs. Love says, protect this connection, this trust, this bond. And when you choose love, something amazing happens, relationships deepen, respect grows, and peace replaces the noise of blame and defensiveness. Apologize with action, because words, no matter how soft or sweet, will always remain incomplete without the behavior to back them up. A true apology is more than saying, I'm sorry. It's a commitment, a promise written not on paper, but in the way you show up afterward. When we hurt someone, whether intentionally or not, what they need is not just to hear that we're sorry, but to feel, through our actions, that their pain mattered enough for us to change. Think about this. If you accidentally step on someone's foot and quickly say, sorry, they might forgive you instantly. But if you step on their foot again and again while repeating, sorry, every single time, what happens? Your apology stops carrying meaning. The same is true in relationships. When we apologize but repeat the same behavior, our words lose their value. People stop listening to our apologies, not because they are unforgiving, but because our actions show them that we are not sincere. Apologizing with action begins with understanding that behavior is the strongest language we speak. Imagine a friend who forgets your birthday. They send a text the next day saying, I'm really sorry, I've just been busy. That message might ease the sting a little, but what truly restores the bond is what happens next. Maybe they make time to celebrate with you later in the week. Maybe they take a moment to acknowledge your importance in their life. That action, that effort, is what makes the apology real. Daily life is filled with these moments. A spouse who says sorry after raising their voice but doesn't work on their temper. A colleague who promises to communicate better but keeps missing deadlines. Or a friend who apologizes for not being there but continues to disappear when you need them. These apologies feel hollow. They are words without roots. They may sound right, but they don't grow trust, because trust needs consistency and proof. On the other hand, think about a time when someone not only said sorry, but also showed you that they meant it. Maybe a friend let you down and then made the effort to rebuild your confidence by being there, by keeping promises, by checking in without being asked. Maybe you argued with a loved one, and afterward they didn't just apologize, but also work to change their tone, their approach, or the way they handled conflict. Those are the apologies that stay with us because they show that the person valued the relationship enough to grow. Taking action as part of your apology doesn't need to be grand or dramatic. Often, it's the small, consistent changes that speak the loudest. For example, if you've hurt someone by not listening, your action can be to start giving them your full attention during conversations. If you've been neglectful, your action can be to start making small but intentional efforts to show that you care. A message, a call, a note, a gesture. If your words cause pain, your action can be to pause and think before speaking, to ensure that you're building instead of breaking. What makes this so powerful is that actions are harder to fake than words. Anyone can say, sorry, in the moment, even without meaning it. But following through requires real effort, real intention, and a genuine desire to do better. When someone sees you taking that effort, their heart softens. They begin to trust that your apology was not just for the sake of ending an argument, but because you truly want to honor their feelings. Apologizing with action also reflects growth. It shows that you're not just aware of the mistake, but are willing to learn from it. Growth is what strengthens relationships, because it builds confidence in the idea that even when things go wrong, and they inevitably will, you will both come out stronger on the other side. This principle applies everywhere, in families, friendships, workplaces, even with strangers. A business that apologizes for poor service but never improves will lose customers. But a business that apologizes and then takes steps to make things right, offering support, resolving the issue, improving their process, earns loyalty. The same is true in our personal relationships. When we match our apologies with actions, we not only repair what was broken, but often create something stronger than before. It's also important to understand that apologizing with action doesn't mean perfection. It doesn't mean you'll never make another mistake. What it does mean is that you're showing up with sincerity, with a willingness to try, and with respect for the other person's feelings. People don't expect us to be flawless. They expect us to be genuine. They expect that if we value them, we'll demonstrate that value through what we do, not just what we say. There's also a quiet beauty in the way actions can heal without words. Sometimes, after a hurtful moment, the most powerful thing you can do is not to repeat sorry again and again, but to show kindness, patience, and consistency over time. Those actions rebuild trust brick by brick until the relationship feels whole again. And let's not forget the way apologizing with action shapes us internally. Every time we back up our words with behavior, we teach ourselves discipline and integrity. We become people whose apologies carry weight, because others know that when we say we'll do better, we mean it. We become people who are trusted, not because we never stumble, but because when we do, we take the responsibility to rise with purpose. So, the next time you find yourself saying, I'm sorry, pause and ask yourself, what will my action be? Maybe it's listening more, maybe it's changing a habit, maybe it's simply showing up more consistently. Whatever it is, let it be something that demonstrates your sincerity, because words may soothe for a moment, but actions have the power to heal, to rebuild, and to turn a simple apology into a foundation for deeper trust and stronger connections. At the heart of it, apologizing with action is about respect. Respect for the other person's feelings, respect for the relationship, and respect for your own growth. When you live this way, your apologies will never be hollow. They will be remembered not just for what you said, but for how you showed through your actions that you truly meant every word. Forgive yourself too, because no matter how deeply you regret your actions, you cannot truly move forward if you keep punishing yourself for the past. We often talk about the importance of apologizing to others, about taking responsibility, and about making amends, but rarely do we speak about the quiet, painful part of the journey, forgiving ourselves. And yet, this step is what allows true healing to happen, both for you and for the people you've hurt. When you've made a mistake, especially one that hurts someone you deeply care about, guilt comes rushing in like a tide. At first, that guilt feels almost necessary, a way of showing that you truly regret what you've done. But when guilt lingers too long, it becomes something heavier, something that doesn't help anyone. It keeps you stuck in the past, replaying the same moment, the same words, the same decisions over and over again. You apologize to the other person, you try to make it right, but inside, you're still carrying a weight that says, I'm not worthy of forgiveness. I'm not allowed to move on. The truth is, you cannot pour healing into someone else if you're empty inside. You cannot rebuild trust or grow as a person if you keep seeing yourself only as the mistake you made. Forgiving yourself doesn't mean excusing what you did. It doesn't mean pretending it didn't matter or that it didn't hurt someone. It simply means accepting that you are human, flawed, imperfect, but capable of growth and change. Think about a child learning to walk. They fall over and over again. Imagine if that child sat there crying, thinking, I'll never walk, I'm such a failure. What would you do? You'd kneel down, lift them up, and say, it's okay. Falling is part of learning. That's exactly how you need to treat yourself when you've stumbled in life. Yes, you made a mistake. Yes, you hurt someone. But that doesn't mean you are your mistake. It means you're learning. And learning always comes with a little bit of falling. Daily life gives us so many examples of why forgiving yourself matters. Maybe you lost your temper and said something you wish you could take back. Maybe you failed to show up for someone when they needed you most. Maybe you made a decision that changed the course of a relationship or an opportunity. Whatever it is, the only way forward is to acknowledge it, learn from it, and then release yourself from the cage of guilt. Because guilt can only do two things: teach you a lesson or trap you. Once you've learned the lesson, holding on to guilt serves no purpose. There's a quiet strength that comes with self-forgiveness. It allows you to approach the other person with sincerity rather than desperation. When you forgive yourself, you're no longer apologizing from a place of fear, but from a place of love, love for them, love for yourself, and love for the relationship you want to rebuild. That difference is powerful because people can sense it. They can sense when you're apologizing to relieve your own guilt versus when you're apologizing to truly heal and grow. Forgiving yourself also gives you clarity. When you're drowning in shame, every thought and every action is clouded by what if and if only. You can't see a path forward because you're too busy staring backward. But when you choose to forgive yourself, you lift your eyes from the past and start seeing the present for what it is: a chance to do better. Consider someone who has made repeated mistakes in a friendship. Maybe they were unreliable. Maybe they took more than they gave. At some point they apologize, and their friend forgives them, but inside they still feel undeserving, so they withdraw. They stop showing up, not because they don't care, but because they feel too ashamed. That friendship eventually fades, not because of the original mistake, but because self-forgiveness never happened. This is why forgiving yourself is so vital. It allows you to keep showing up, to keep loving, to keep building, without being chained by who you used to be. Forgiving yourself doesn't happen overnight. It's a process, a gentle, patient process of learning to speak kindly to yourself again. Instead of saying, "I can't believe I did that," you start saying, "I made a mistake, but I'm learning." Instead of replaying the moment of failure, you focus on the steps you're taking to grow. And little by little, you start to see yourself not as the person who failed, but as the person who rose after failing. This mindset shift is what allows you to turn pain into wisdom. Every mistake carries a lesson. Every hurtful word, every wrong choice, every moment you wish you could take back. All of it can teach you something valuable about who you are and who you want to become. Self-forgiveness is what allows you to take that lesson and use it instead of staying trapped in the pain of what can't be changed. Another important truth about self-forgiveness is that it models grace for others. When people see you own your mistakes and forgive yourself, they are inspired to do the same. They learn that it's okay to be imperfect, that it's okay to grow at your own pace, that life isn't about avoiding every mistake, but about becoming wiser with each one. Forgiving yourself doesn't erase the need for accountability. In fact, it strengthens it. Because when you're not drowning in guilt, you have the clarity and confidence to make amends in a healthy way. You can take responsibility, take action, and rebuild relationships without the heavy voice of shame telling you that you'll never be enough. At the end of the day, forgiving yourself is an act of love. Love for the person you are, love for the person you're becoming, and love for the relationships you want to nurture. It's the quiet reminder that you are allowed to grow beyond your mistakes, that you are allowed to rebuild trust, that you are allowed to move forward without carrying the chains of yesterday. So, the next time you find yourself replaying an old regret, pause. Take a deep breath and remind yourself, I did what I did. I've learned what I needed to learn. And now I choose to forgive myself so I can do better, love better, and live better. Because in the end, forgiving yourself is not about forgetting the past. It's about refusing to let the past control the rest of your life. Say it before it's too late. Because time is the one thing we can never rewind. We often think we have endless tomorrows to fix what went wrong, to apologize, to heal a wound, or to simply say the words that someone has been longing to hear. But life has a way of reminding us that moments slip through our fingers faster than we expect, and opportunities once lost rarely return in the same way. How many times have we thought, I'll call them tomorrow, or I'll apologize when the time feels right, only to realize that tomorrow never came, or the moment to make things right had already passed. This is the quiet tragedy of unspoken words. They weigh on our hearts far longer than we ever imagined. Saying sorry while there's still time is not just an act of kindness to others, it's an act of peace for yourself. Think about someone you care for deeply, a parent, a friend, a sibling, a partner. Maybe there's been a misunderstanding, a harsh word, or a mistake that created distance. Deep down, you know you should reach out, but your ego whispers, "Not now, let them come to you." Days turn into weeks, and sometimes weeks into years. And then one day, something changes. They move away, the friendship fades, or worse, they're gone. In that moment, the weight of the unsaid, "I'm sorry," is heavier than anything you've ever carried. Life is unpredictable. We don't get reminders before things change forever. A loved one you see every day could be someone you wish you had one more conversation with tomorrow. That's why saying sorry, genuinely, openly, and without hesitation, is so important. Because when you apologize while you still can, you give both yourself and the other person a gift. The gift of closure, of healing, of peace. In daily life, this lesson shows up in small ways too. Maybe you argued with a friend and thought, "I'll wait for them to reach out first." Maybe you ignored a colleague who only wanted understanding. Maybe you let pride keep you from telling someone, "I was wrong, and I'm sorry." These moments seem small in the moment, but over time, they can grow into walls that separate hearts. And the truth is, most walls are built not from huge betrayals, but from small, consistent silences where there should have been words. Saying it before it's too late isn't just about avoiding regret. It's about honoring the relationships that matter most. When you care about someone, your willingness to apologize first says, "You are more important to me than my ego." That kind of humility doesn't weaken a relationship, it strengthens it. People remember how you made them feel, and nothing heals faster than knowing that someone values you enough to take the first step toward reconciliation. There's also freedom in speaking up sooner rather than later. The longer you hold on to the words, "I'm sorry," the heavier they become. Your heart knows what it needs to release, and holding it in creates tension in your mind, in your relationships, and even in your own peace of mind. But the moment you speak, the moment you finally say, "I'm sorry for what I did," it feels as if a weight you've been carrying for ages suddenly lifts. Consider a story many of us can relate to. A parent and child have a disagreement. Harsh words are exchanged, and both feel hurt. Days pass, and neither wants to be the first to apologize. Then one day, something happens. Maybe the parent falls ill, maybe the child moves to another city, maybe life simply changes. And suddenly, the chance to heal that wound isn't there anymore. And what remains are the echoes of, "I wish I had said something sooner." This is why saying sorry in the moment matters. It's not about who was right or wrong. It's about choosing the relationship over the argument. When you say sorry early, you prevent small misunderstandings from becoming lasting scars. You remind the other person that they matter more to you than the temporary comfort of pride. And here's the beautiful thing about apologizing early. It doesn't just heal others, it heals you too. When you let go of ego and embrace humility, you create space for peace to enter. You stop replaying the fight in your head. You stop imagining what you should have said or done differently. Instead, you move forward with a lightness that only truth and sincerity can bring. Saying it before it's too late also teaches us to live in the present. Too often, we wait for the right time, to express our feelings, but the right time is now. Tomorrow is never promised, and the words you speak today might be the words that bring comfort and healing tomorrow. In friendships, in families, in workplaces, in love, this principle never fails. The colleague you wronged today might be the same person you need help from next week. The sibling you argued with might be the one cheering you on in your biggest moment. The partner you hurt might be the person you want to grow old with. When you apologize early, you protect those bonds from unnecessary damage and create a foundation of trust and respect that lasts. And if you're wondering how to start, remember this: sincerity matters more than perfection. You don't need the perfect words. You don't need a grand speech. A simple, "I realize I hurt you, and I'm truly sorry," spoken with honesty, is often more powerful than anything else. Because apologies are not about eloquence, they're about humility and love. The greatest tragedy in life is not making mistakes, it's leaving those mistakes unaddressed. Pride might feel powerful in the moment, but over time, it becomes a cage, one that keeps you from the people and the peace you deserve. Choosing to apologize and choosing to do it before it's too late is choosing freedom, love, and growth.